What's up, guys? I'm EJ, and I'm joined by Kendall, and thank you so much for checking out this edition of our virtual NBA Draft War Room. Today, we're talking about the defending NBA champion Los Angeles Lakers. Kendall, it's a long time coming for these Laker fans, at least for them, not definitely for Knicks fans or any other fans who have been suffering way longer than the Lakers had. But for the Laker fans, it was a long time coming, but LeBron did indeed bring a championship to the city of Los Angeles, of course, with a big help from Anthony Davis, and in a season that was it was emotional for a lot of reasons. Obviously the success on the court, brought kind of a new sense of pride and a sense of stature back to the Laker organization that we expected. But of course, it was a season of tragedy with the terrifying and horrifying passing of Kobe Bryant. So this Laker championship was obviously well deserved, well earned for sure. And now they head into this offseason and they head into this draft as the NBA champions with somewhat of a roster still in flux, and still, I think, some holes that they could fill, whether it be free agency or this draft. What do you make of the Lakers as we head into this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think when you're talking about the Lakers, obviously this is not a team that wants to be a one and done NBA champion. This is a team that wants to be on the pantheon of great Laker teams, be on the pantheon of great NBA dynasties, and to do that, you have to win multiple. And so their goal is to win back to back. And when you have LeBron and AD, they're going to be in the mix, obviously, and probably the favorites. But they also had a lot of older players, on their roster, and they have a pick at 28 that could be used to replace some of those guys. So, or at least one of those guys. So, this is an important pick. And, look, we had some Milwaukee Bucks fans that were talking about our Bucks video. And, the idea was that, you can't really find a player at 20, wherever they were, 24, that could really help, win a championship. But, look, we've seen plenty of scenarios where guys have gone, late in the first round that have impacted winning, impacted championship teams.
Absolutely,
teams that you can't understate. I look back to
Tayshaun Prince was like, what was he, a second round pick? He was starting,
I believe he might have been late first round. But
okay, but he was late in the draft, and again,
think about the 2011 draft. The 2011 draft, the Miami Heat, they drafted Norris Cole in that draft, and Norris Cole, he's a decent player, but and the Celtics in that draft drafted Juwan Johnson, who was not a decent player. But both those teams were contenders late in the first round, and who they were thinking about drafting, who they ended up passing on. They were down to those two guys for both of them. The other guy that they were thinking about drafting in that scenario was Jimmy Butler, who ended up going to the Chicago Bulls and played a role very early on in his career. And obviously, if the Heat draft Jimmy Butler as a rookie, maybe they beat the Mavericks. If the Heat draft or if the Celtics draft Jimmy Butler, who knows? Maybe they beat the Heat. So these are obviously conversations that need to be had when it comes to these late first round picks. You can find a star player or even just a contributing role player in the late first round.
Yeah, and I even think about I forgot where he went, but I don't think he was late first round. But even like Richard Jefferson, starting for the Nets as a outside the lottery pick, or maybe he was a lottery, I don't know. But rookies can absolutely, whether it be first round, middle, late first round, depending on the guy, they definitely could fit. And one of the things we talk about all the time is sometimes it's great for these teams that are championship caliber teams that are looking for role players to draft late in the draft, because oftentimes you may be finding a guy who kind of had to play a role in college. You're drafting in the top 5 or 10. Very few quote unquote role players you're going to be drafting in terms of what their role was in college. You're drafting guys who maybe average 20 points a game, leading the team in scoring. You have your Patrick Williams and Vassell every now and then who were kind of role players on their teams, but most of the time you're drafting stars who didn't have to learn how to play a role, and that's why they can't. If they get drafted to a championship caliber team or a playoff team, then sometimes maybe they struggle early on.
I will give credit to Norris Cole. I think the Heat did win a championship in his rookie year, but credit to him. But still, obviously, Jimmy Butler would have been the better pick, and maybe would have helped them maybe win 3 in a row. Who knows? But
yeah, and Cole was he helped them win. Yeah, he wasn't like a guy riding. I mean, he made shots. Like he was a player.
Exactly.
So this 28. So this is not and Laker fans, trust me, Laker fans watching this, you guys are one of the most intense fan bases in the NBA. They know the importance of this pick, and I've seen them on social media talking about what they should do for this pick, and I've been kind of.
They know more than anybody that you can find a Kyle Kuzma late in the first round.
Right.
That ends up being better than your number 2 pick in the draft.
Yeah. So so this is definitely an important pick. So let's break down the Lakers and their offseason outlook. So again, the Lakers NBA champions finished with a record of 52-19. That was the best record in the Western Conference. They own only one pick, number 28, as we've said. Team needs, I put down, they need dynamic backcourt play. They have their guards were obviously good enough to win a championship. Especially when you have a player like LeBron James who dominates the ball so much. But I still think, with Rondo becoming, potentially a free agent and him getting older, he was a dynamic player for them in the playoffs. He might not have been for the however many games they played in the regular season, but he was a dynamic guard in the playoffs, and that's why they won. But if you don't, Rondo. Shocking, Rondo doing what he does in the playoffs as always. But if he's not back, or even if he is back, he's not the same guy because he's a year older. You're going to need someone else that can do that role. Caruso is a great defender and a great hustle guy. But he's not a dynamic guard by any means, and even their other backcourt mates. KCP. I know he's on that. He's on that Clutch Sports All Stars team. I'm sure Rich Paul may try to cut a deal to get him back, but he is a free agent. And Danny Green, very up and down postseason, very up and down season, and I think a lot of those guys are kind of all one dimensional. And I know they do. They serve a purpose that absolutely is great for the team. They're perfect in their role, but they could probably use some more diversity in their guard play. So I put dynamic backcourt play being one. I put youth overall. This is not and obviously this is something you could definitely fill in the draft because all the players you're drafting are 22 and under. But when I look at this, I don't look at it just at what you do in the draft. I just look at overall this offseason. And youth, I think, is important. Dwight Howard's getting up there, and he's a free agent. JaVale McGee is getting up there. We all know LeBron's now going to year 18. Rondo's old. I mean, this is not a young team by any means. So what we've seen is sometimes these old teams, while they put together great seasons, the inability to kind of sustain that high level of play oftentimes is because they just don't have the physical capability. So if the Lakers, I think they could find some useful players to put in there. Getting Avery Bradley back, of course, will be a great thing for them. That would be important. And then lastly, I put depth at the 5. Again, Dwight Howard is a free agent. I don't know what the Lakers' plans are for him or what he plans to do with this season. So that's going to be something to take a look at. And JaVale McGee kind of fell out of favor by the time we got to the postseason. Where does it stand on the team? Either way, I think they could probably look to upgrade that spot. Anthony Davis seems absolutely committed to not having to play power center full time. So with that being the case, you're going to need a 5-man who can be capable and make sense next to AD. So all of those to me are obvious team needs. Free agents, Anthony Davis said he's going to opt out, but all the inclination is that he's going to re-sign, so there's really no concern there. I mentioned KCP is a free agent. Quinn Cook is basically kind of on a team option. His deal is non-guaranteed for next season, so they have a certain deadline before they have to either guarantee him or cut him. Jared Dudley's a free agent. I mentioned Howard. I mentioned Rondo, who is a player option. Markieff Morris, also a free agent, along with Dion Waiters. Costas Antetokounmpo is on the last year of his 2-way deal, so I think he's an unrestricted free agent. And Devontae Kakar is also on a 2-way deal. Kendall, I'll go first on this one. I wasn't sure if I'd let you go first. I'm gonna go first on this one in terms of. By the way, Rob Pelinka, of course, decision maker here. Backcourt play was something I thought about.
Wait,
I think.
Not to cut you off, you didn't put Rich Paul. Me.
Relax. Shout out to Rich Paul and shout out to Rob Pelinka. No disrespect to either gentleman. No, I did not put Rich Paul as the primary decision maker for the Lakers. I'm still saying that's Rob Pelinka. In terms of targets, though, again, I looked at the backcourt. I think the Lakers are going to go either backcourt or center. I think both of those spots are clearly, to me, the spots I would probably look at. Swing players, you got LeBron and Kuzma. I don't think you necessarily need a forward. You could definitely use maybe a 2 guard, but with Bradley coming back, I don't think even that is as much of a strain when you got Bradley and you got Green. So I looked at point guard at first, and my first guy was Malachi Flynn from San Diego State. I think when you think about dynamic play, he's a guy who's great in pick and roll. So I think he would be an excellent fit with AD. I think one of the things we saw sometimes with the Lakers, I think that's why some of their offensive numbers when LeBron, first of all, when LeBron's off the court, the offensive numbers are bad because he's LeBron James. But let's just get XOs a little bit here. I think some of the reason also why you saw their offensive numbers in terms of on-off numbers look so bad with AD out there and LeBron off, at least compared to when LeBron's on and AD's off, is because I think besides Rondo, there really is no other pick and roll option to play 2-man game with AD. And when Rondo wasn't playing well like he was in the regular season, I mean, now you have nobody. So they need another guy. Malachi Flynn, I think, is excellent in pick and roll. I think he'd be a really good fit playing with AD, getting him shots. And I also think Flynn would be really good as a spot-up shooter. He's an excellent shooter, and obviously whatever guard you're playing with LeBron James has to be able to hit the 3-ball. And I think that he would relish in that role as a big shot maker. He was a big shot maker in college, not afraid of the big moment. Staying in Southern California, I think it makes all the sense in the world. So Malachi Flynn would be my first target.
Yeah, I like the Flynn pick. He's obviously a big time guard. We mentioned from the West Coast. And look, I mean, again, tough as nails. Guy can play both ends of the floor well and can fill it up.
And when I'm drafting real quickly, when I'm drafting for, if I'm drafting for a player that I want to play immediately, which I think the Lakers will actually need, I'm not drafting a 19-year-old kid. I also want somebody who's probably a little more seasoned. If I'm drafting this late in the draft,
right?
If you're drafting the top 10, that 19-year-old kid may be able to play.
And the success that we've typically seen from guys late in the first round comes from older,
more veteran players, exactly.
Kuzma, Jimmy Butler, that Malcolm Brogdon, that typically is the Draymond Green. That typically is the archetype. Of course, every now and then you get a Mitchell Robinson, but for me. I agree. I'm looking at point guard. Well, I have 2 guys, and they're actually on the same team. But I'm looking at the Duke Blue Devils, and for me, I'm looking at Trey Jones, point guard out of Duke, and I'm also looking at Cassius Stanley. But I'll start with Trey Jones, who I think is I think he's a great fit. The Avery Bradley piece is interesting because obviously we didn't see him in the bubble. And I feel like this Lakers team, I don't want to say they're a completely different team in the bubble, but they evolved, during the playoffs. And, I don't know what that team looks like with Avery Bradley. I know Lakers fans will tell you they would have won 4-4-4-4, if they had Avery Bradley. I don't know if that's legit. But, I think it's, I think that they could have been better. So obviously Avery Bradley's a little bit of a wild card, but, what we saw from the Lakers is that they, and what we're going to have to see going forward is that, look, the point guard position in the NBA is a gauntlet. And what they don't have is anybody that gives you any threat defensively at the guard position. And I mean, Avery Bradley's that guy, but he didn't play in the bubble, obviously. But if you want someone else that can also give you that threat, Trey Jones, I think, might be the best defensive point guard in the draft. He doesn't have the size, but in terms of being able to move his feet and being able to, guard a guy 94 feet and, really get up under a guy, he has a little bit of a Patrick Beverley kind of. He's not the he's not the guy that's going to irritate you like Patrick Beverley, but or talk trash, I would say, but he's gonna get in your face and he's gonna make it hard for you to get the ball past half court. So look, I think Trey Jones developed an offensive player, but he does give you that floor general playmaking kind of archetype. It's just he can't shoot the basketball, and that's the concern. He's gonna have to work on his jump shot to really stay on the floor. But look, I mean, can he hit the spot up jump shot? That's going to be his question. But that's all he's going to have to do. He's going to have to essentially be Patrick Beverley. And I think he seems like a hardworking kid, and he's again, elite defensive player. I think he can be an elite defensive player at the NBA level. Not a very switchable player, which is a concern. But again, neither is Patrick Beverley. He's just going to have to be able to compete. And that's going to be the question with Trey Jones. And Cassius Stanley, I think, is a guy who would really improve the athletic profile of this Lakers team. Something that I think needs to improve because, again, they were older and, you had guys that, could, yeah, I mean, KCP can get up and down a little bit, defend. Caruso likes to fancy himself as a guy with hops and, can get up and stuff. But, but they need to improve that athletic profile on the wing. Danny Green is not going to scare anybody, not going to be playing above the rim. LeBron is that guy, and LeBron's obviously getting older. So, if you talk about adding youth and adding athleticism to this team, I think Cassius Stanley may be the most athletic player in this draft. I wouldn't even say maybe. I think he is. I mean, talking him and Obi Toppin, and I'd venture to say Cassius Stanley might be that guy. And he's a guy that can play a role. He did it at Duke. Wasn't necessarily their go-to guy, but played his role really well to the point where he may have been Duke's best player. Can hit the spot up three. Plays within himself. Isn't a guy that just because he was a top player coming out of high school doesn't mean, and he's a younger player, doesn't mean he's gonna do more than he can or more than he's capable of. He's a guy that plays within his strengths, gives you an elite athlete who can fill the lane next to LeBron, and is a guy who can defend and can be taught how to defend. So, and obviously, elephant in the room, he's a West Coast kid from California, Sierra Canyon. So, I think that'd be a good fit as well. I did think about Anthony Edwards and Tyrese Maxey, both clutch guys, but I'm not sure if the Lakers have the assets to get them.
Yeah, I think that would take a Herculean effort by Rich Paul to somehow pull that off. I like both picks. I think that you undersell Caruso's defense. I think that he's a really good defender, but I don't think adding Trey Jones would hurt.
Does Caruso strike fear in Damian Lillard? Does he strike fear in?
I don't think anyone strikes fear in Damian Lillard. You know what I'm saying? Like there are certain guards. I think in this league there are certain guards that it doesn't matter who's out there, they're gonna get theirs. And then there are certain guards that are good, but like if you have a good defender, they could cause problems. I think Caruso's in that category as a defender, in my opinion. And I don't know how Lakers fans feel about him, but just me watching the Lakers, Caruso is very disruptive. He's quick on his feet. He has good hands. And he just plays hard. I mean, he doesn't give up. So I think you understand him a little bit, but again, I agree. Jones is the best defensive player in this draft on the perimeter. I don't want to say by far, but it may be by far. I mean, to me, I saw him just erase people for 2 years at Duke. And erase good guards. Just erase them.
Like Ashton Hagen's is also a very good defensive guard in this draft.
Yeah.
But he's not Trey Jones. He's a tier. He's a tier below.
Jones is one of the.
But
Jones.
Trey Jones is a tier of his own.
Yeah, Jones is one of the best I've seen come out in college in a while. He was that good.
Marcus Smart, which is a long time. And look what Marcus Smart turned into. He doesn't have the physical profile of Marcus Smart.
The other guy was really good also was Javon Carter. I think those two guys also two guys in they were in their own class. Well. Yeah.
And Carter, has helped, in his time in both Memphis and Phoenix.
For sure.
Has proven it as a guy that can get on the floor because of his defensive prowess.
Yeah, and I think that you could see Jones have a similar role with the Lakers. The other guy, and by the way, I think Stanley, I saw Gordon Arenas say this, and I agree. Stanley looks like the kind of player that may be a better NBA player than he is a college player. I think he can end up being one of the steals later in the draft. So, I'm not sure. I get the athletic profile thing. I'm not sure how much time he gets to play with the Lakers, but I think the player may end up being really good. So you can never hate that pick. The other guy I would throw out there real quickly is I did also put Xavier Tillman as a potential piece there because I think he actually would be a really good 5-man next to AD. He doesn't need a lot of touches. He's physical. He's switchable. And he's a high IQ player, which I think if you're playing with LeBron James, he wants all high IQ players. Tillman is high IQ offensively and defensively. And I love the fit with him in AD. So I think he'd play right away. So I think that a Tillman AD front court, if Tillman's coming off the bench, and I think that they could do some damage offensively and defensively. So I would look at him also as a piece there. The Lakers, to me, this is whenever the champs are drafting, it's always fascinating. Whenever that happens. So I'm really curious to see what the Lakers end up trying to do. What do you guys think the Lakers should do with this pick? Leave a comment on this video. If you liked it, of course, please like this video and subscribe to our channel, New Generation Media. We're just starting off with the Pacific Division. We got plenty more videos coming up. We're starting off the Western Conference with the champs, but there are plenty of teams left to get into. So we're excited to start this conversation. So thank you guys so much. That'll do it for now. For Kendall, I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.